Hi everybody, welcome to the San Mateo County Library's STEAM Camp. I'm so excited to be back with you today. My name is Alice and I am a librarian with the Portola Valley and the Woodside Libraries. And before we get going with our activity today, I wanted to just remind you that you can still sign up for our Summer Learning Challenge at summerlearners.org. All the information on it is on that website. I also wanted to make sure that you know that we are now giving away free books like we normally do. And the way we're doing it is you can go when we have our normal curbside pickup hours and just get a bag. You don't need to make an appointment. And you can get more information on that on our website, smcl.org as well. So before we really do our activity, I like to do a little warm up. And today we don't need to stand up and jump around. I just have something with my arms that I want us to try doing that'll work our brains a little bit too. So it's a little puzzle, and the way it works is I'm going to cross my arms, grab my hands together, twist my arms towards me, put my pointer fingers up, and put the backs of them on my nose, and then I untwist. Did you just try it? Did it work? Or did you get tangled up? If you got tangled up, or if it worked, let's try it again, because it's always good to try an experiment and a puzzle a few times. So go ahead, take your arms, cross them, grab your hands together, twist, put your fingers up, put the backs of them on your nose. Uh-oh, this time I got tangled. I want to do it a couple more times, and we're going to think really hard and pay really close attention about exactly what we're doing in every step. So let's take our arms, cross them, and I'm noticing which arm I have on top. I have my right arm on top. Maybe you have a different one on top. And then I think I'm going to try grabbing my hands together so that my left pinky is on top. So my right arm is on top and my left pinky is on top. And then I'm gonna twist, put my fingers up, put the backs of my fingers on. Oh, that got me tangled. I'm gonna try it one more time and see. Try something different. So I'm gonna try it this time. I'm still gonna put my right arm on top, grab my hands together, but this time when I grab my hands together, I'm gonna put my right pinky on the top too. So my right arm is on top and my right pinky is on top. And I'm gonna twist it back towards my face, put my fingers up, put the backs of my fingers on my nose, and untwist. And I am untangled. So why do you think that might have happened? Keep playing around with maybe putting a different arm or a different hand on top and see if you can figure out what's going on when you untwist your arms in different ways. So that brings me to our activity, now that our brains are a little more awake and our bodies have moved a little bit. So today I wanted to do an activity that's part of a kind of math, because as I've said before, that M is one of my favorite parts of STEAM. So it's part of a kind of math called topology, which if you haven't heard about it, don't worry about it. I didn't know really anything about it until I went to college, so you're ahead of the curve now. And this kind of math is sort of like geometry in that we're looking at the shapes of things, but we don't really care about the size of the angles or how big it is or how many sides it has. Instead, we care about how we can manipulate it or change a shape without changing certain things about it, like how many holes it has or how many times it twists. And what we just did with our arms actually is using topology, because when we changed what we did with our arms, different things happened. So we are going to do an activity with Mobius strips today. And I got this activity from the Bay Area Discovery Museum. And Mobius strips are something that were discovered by a guy, this German mathematician, a guy who studied math, and his name was August Mobius. And he discovered these about 160 years ago. So they've been around a little while, not quite as long as like the tangrams we did last week, but they've still been around a bit. So people have had time to get to know them. So we're going to get to know them today. And for this activity, I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see what supplies we need. Let's see. Go ahead and share this. So you will need, there we go. You will need some paper and some scissors and a marker or pen or something and some tape. Now the marker or whatever you use to draw with, the most important thing about it is that it doesn't show through to the other side of your paper. So I actually started out using a Sharpie and it showed through on the other side of my paper, so I switched partway through planning this out. So I don't recommend a Sharpie if you're using plain printer paper or something that the color will show through easily. So the first thing we're going to do is we are actually going to start by making just a plain loop of paper rather than a Mobius strip, because I like to start out making something that I'm kind of familiar with and then making the thing that's newer to me so I can compare them and kind of figure out how it's different. So we're going to make a loop of paper kind of like you would make a paper chain, just one loop of that paper chain. All right, so go ahead and cut about 2 inches off of your paper that we're going to use. It doesn't have to be exactly. And then we're going to go ahead and make that loop and tape it. And then I want to do something with it, with our marker. Go ahead and pick a point on the loop. It can be the outside or the inside, and draw a line around it until you get back to where you started. And you can try and do it without lifting your pencil. Just make sure you're continuing that line back to the beginning. I wanted to take a look at it and think, what do you notice about this? Does it look like the line is on the inside and the outside of the paper? Looks like on mine, the line is just on the outside. And that makes me think, how many sides does that have? If I have one side with a line on it and one side with no line, I think that's 2 sides. Now we're going to go ahead and set that loop aside. We'll come back to it later. But now that we kind of have looked at a loop that's more what we're used to, we're going to make our Mobius strip. So go ahead and cut another strip of paper, more or less 2 inches wide. It doesn't have to be exact. And I have a little video here of what I did. So what you're going to do is you're going to take it and you're going to twist one end of it so that the top side is on the bottom. And then you're going to try and connect those, keeping that twist there. And if this is hard, you can make yourself a longer strip of paper, but it should look like this when you're done with it. And you can go ahead and tape that together. And it sort of looks like a loop now that has some twist in it. And then go ahead and try drawing a line again. So like you did with your first loop, pick a point, any point, doesn't matter where, on the Mobius strip, and draw a line, trying to draw a single line without lifting your pen. If you have to lift it, just start back where you were. And then once you've drawn it, take a look and think, what do you notice about it? If you have someone with you, maybe talk to them about what you see. Do you see a line on both sides of the paper? Do you see, that's a misleading question actually. Do you see any part of the paper that doesn't have a line? It looks like your line maybe went all the way around and there's no side of the paper that it didn't go on, even though you just drew one line. Which makes me wonder, how many sides does that paper have now? Maybe it only has one side. That's pretty interesting, I think. So that piece of paper with a twist in it and with just one side, that is what's called a Mobius strip. And I want to go ahead and see what happens if I cut the loops. I'm actually going to stop sharing because I think we can do this all together. So I have a loop that I made, and actually you can see on this one, I only drew one line on one side, but it bled through. So this is just a plain loop with the two sides, and I want to try cutting it on the side, just on the line that I drew. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I hope you'll try too, and see what happens. What do you notice about it? I notice I have two pieces, and these pieces look pretty much the same as each other. And they're actually pretty similar to what I started with too. If I just look at one of them, it's still a ring. It's a little narrower, but it's basically the same shape. So we say that that is topologically equivalent, meaning it's basically the same thing as what we started with. Now I want to try the same thing with our Mobius strip. I have a Mobius strip here. Let's see what happens when we try cutting it. And before we try, let's think about what we think might happen. Go ahead and turn to whoever's with you and give them your prediction. Or if you're alone, write down your prediction so you don't forget what it was. All right. Are we ready to cut? Do we all have our predictions ready? So we're going to try and cut on the line we drew. Suspense is thick. All right. And I'm wondering whether this will be two pieces like the other one I drew. Oh, here we go. Interesting. What do you notice about it? It looks like it's only one piece. That's really interesting, isn't it? And I wonder if it's like our loops were topologically equivalent or pretty much the same as what we started with, or if it's different. And can anyone think of a way to test that? We know how many twists we put in it, so we could try counting the twists. That's a little hard. Or we could try drawing a line again on it to see if it still only has one side. I think that's what I want to do, and I actually already did it with one. Before I show you, do you think it's going to be the same, or do you think it's going to be different? Let's find out. Here's my Mobius strip. Let's take a look. Do you see a line going through some of it? But is it going through all of it? Take a look at that. It looks like it's got a blank side. So this has how many sides? It has two sides. That's fascinating. So maybe we should try counting the twists and trying to figure out how many are in there. I actually did this ahead of time, and I counted, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 twists. So it has an even number of twists. Think about that number. Now that's all the time I have for making Mobius strips with you today. I hope that you will keep trying making these strips and try putting different numbers of twists in them. See if you can find a pattern about how many sides it has. Maybe you want to take your Mobius strip that you cut once and cut it in half again and see what you get. That could be really interesting. And if you do that, I would love to see what you make. Since I can't see you at the library, I hope that you would take a picture of it and post it online and use either at SMC Libraries or use the hashtag SMCLCreates so that we can see the super interesting shapes that you've made with your Mobius strip experiments. And I hope that you will also join us again tomorrow for more STEAM Camp from San Mateo County Libraries. Thanks for joining me.